Hey, Thomas from Field Tennis. Today we're going to talk about a deep volley. We're going to talk about why you need it, what is the tactical objective behind the deep volley, how to treat it, how it's different from the punch volley, what are technical modifications or skill necessary for you to play the volleys very deep. And finally, I will give you 3 drills that are progressively more challenging, starting from easy to more difficult. So let's dive in. So how is a deep volley different from the usual punch volley? Well, usually you're playing it much further from the net, and that's usually your first volley after the approach or after your serve, so it applies to singles and doubles. So when you play a punch volley, you're quite close to the net and you can punch downwards. So when you get the ball like this, you can punch downwards, and all the usual instructions you're getting from your coaches apply, because usually that's all they teach you. But then if you have to volley from here after the first approach shot and all you have is a punch volley technique, then you're gonna be in big trouble. So you have to know how you're going to volley the ball from here and what is your main objective. So if the ball comes here, then I have to play it more upwards. I'm playing it more upwards because I'm going to use this ball as an approach shot. I'm gonna come closer to the net, and now I can angle the ball away or punch it. So now I'm going to show you from the back view camera the trajectory of the ball. I'm going to just volley cross court while my cousin Blaž just feeds me a nice ball. So I want you to see the difference between the first approach ball, because I need to play it very deep and I will be standing deep. This is where you're going to play the first volley around the service line. If you're quite quick, you might get inside. Many times you're going to play behind the service line. And so from here you want to play the ball deep in order to force your opponent to half volley or play the ball on the rise. That's one objective. And the second objective is that you have time to come close to the net. So another reason why it's not good to try to hit very fast volleys off your first volley is because you're not going to have time to come close to the net, and then you give your opponent better angles. And so I want you to show you, of course, I will just demonstrate for very clear picture or differentiation between the punch volley and the first volley. So if I play the first volley cross court deep, then we're going to wait for the next one. See, this one is very good just on the line. So I want to, that's a typical ball. You see that landed like 2 feet from the baseline, and that's pushing my opponent backwards. And while my ball is flying there and it's floating a little bit, we're going to talk about that in a second, about slice and float, that gives me the time to approach the net. And now from here I can punch the ball away or play a drop shot or angle it or whatever happens. So what are the keys to technical elements of the deep volley that you have to master and that are different from the usual punch volley? So there might be quite different because you have to come under the ball, play the ball a bit upwards. I'm going to use the back camera here so that you see very nicely the trajectory of the ball. And so you have to hit the ball a bit upwards with some backspin, because backspin allows the ball to float quite deep. It flies deep and you don't have to hit it hard. You just have to find the right height and backspin, and the ball will go very deep, and then you can close in on the net. So the technique might be quite different from what you're used to. So you might be used to coming very close to the net and then punching the ball down like this. But now when you're further from the net, you're gonna get more of low balls, and you're gonna have to slice the ball a little bit like this one. See, this one is perfect, you can see from the back camera. And this one is inside the line. So this one, the ball floats, so it's basically kind of a slice in the air, a shortened version of the slice. This one is also perfect volley. And so that pushes the opponent deep, and it gives me time to approach the net. And now I can close in on the net, whether those are singles or doubles. If they're doubles, even better, because we're now 2 players at the net. Opponent is backing off and we give them no space. So let me show you the difference between these volleys, the punch volley and a deep volley with more slice from the forehand side. The camera is also there so that you can nicely see the trajectory of the ball. So when I'm closer to the net and I get a bit higher ball, then I can punch it away. So that is the technique. But when I'm further from the net, then I have to use different technique and I have to make the ball float. So I have to play with a bit of slice, give the ball good height. You see this one is very nice and deep, so the ball floats. Now depending on your skill level, of course, if you're not so skilled, you can float it like this. It's still perfectly just inside the baseline. So that would give me a lot of time to come closer to the net. And from here, I have much easier volleys to finish. So again, like I mentioned before, in terms of tactics, you have to know what is the purpose of this deep volley. The purpose is like a setup volley. You want to come closer to the net. You want to give yourself time to close in on the net, and then you have much better chances of putting the ball away. By the way, if you struggle with your volleys, it may not be because you're lacking some information, but because the information you have is not a good one. So I created a free course that busts 4 of the most common volley myths that you hear all the time on the courts or online in online instruction. We're going to be talking about your arms position, how much backswing to take, how much follow through to take, and whether you really need to step into every ball. The link is in the description. Sign up and I will see you with all the answers on the other side. So there's one more important difference between a punch volley or volley close to the net and a deep volley, and that's the way you move. So when you're closer to the net, maybe in doubles, you're already here close to the net and you're waiting for the return and you attack, you punch the ball, then you're gonna do just one quick step pop and you're gonna recover so that you're not too vulnerable to lobs. You cannot like put your nose over the net. So you're typically just kind of doing one step and you're ready. But when you're volleying deep volleys, you're still around the service line and you have to come closer to the net. So what may trouble you is that if you're used to just like one step and stopping, is that you're gonna slow down too much here on this volley. So you're gonna get a deep volley and you will kind of do this and then you're gonna go and then you will not come close enough to the net. So what you need to learn is that you have to learn or just simply let go, try to keep moving through the volley. So don't stop when the ball comes. You're just moving through the volley and approaching the net. So here's one more. I'm moving through the volley and coming to the net. So this was a good example of how I was moving through the ball, through the volley. Of course I'm stepping, but I'm allowing my body mass to move through the ball in a controlled manner. Here's another example. So I'm moving through the ball in a controlled manner, and that also helps me give the ball that a bit extra energy to help it float quite deep towards the other baseline. So not only is that helping me get closer to the net, but it's helping me a bit in terms of power delivered to the ball. So what are some drills that can help you develop the right technique for a deep volley, which means that you have to learn to come a bit under the ball, play the ball a little bit upwards, and give the ball some backspin. So Blaž and I are going to volley now from service line. So we're both on the service line, around the service line, and we're going to try and keep the volley to volley going. If that is a bit too difficult at first, just start a bit inside the court somewhere here, but we're going to try it from here. So the key is not to play volleys very fast, but always to picture that you're volleying the ball a bit upwards in a very controlled manner and that you see some backspin on the ball. Yes, and be ready to save any balls that are not perfect and try and keep the rally going. So you don't have to think too much about any backswing or follow through. Just picture that the ball goes upward, that it goes nicely to your partner, that you can play some backspin on the ball. So observe the ball as it's leaving your racket and try to see if it's spinning backwards. Yes, and try to keep the ball at good control, not too fast. So here's drill number 2. Blaž and I are just going to try and keep the ball in place. So Blaž is on the baseline, just hitting ground strokes. I am volleying. My objective is to hit the ball very deep, so in reality that means I'm kind of aiming into the last quarter of the court. And we're trying to keep the ball in play, and we're both playing quite slow, so slow and controlled, because I want to have enough time to position and give the ball good enough height and backspin. So you will see from the back camera, you will nicely see the trajectory of the ball. And so that's the main objective, so let's see how we go. So again, we're not trying to play the ball fast. I'm not playing the ball very fast. You can watch from the side camera how I'm controlling volleys. Some backspin on the ball. And Blaž is not really attacking me because this is just a drill. It's a progressive drill. But it's teaching you the right skills on how to come under the ball, figure out the right, see, this one is perfect, the right parameters of the shot in terms of how much backspin to give to the ball and how much speed to control it. So when you have that skill, you're very good at controlling the ball, then that's the skill that you need to come closer to the net, or later on when you become better, you can play this a little bit faster. But that's the first drill that I want you to try and play with your partner, or if you have a ball machine, that you just control and hit as many volleys as you can in the last quarter. So here's the third drill in the progression when you practice deep volleys, and we're going to now connect a deep volley with a punch volley or angled volley or a drop shot volley, whatever comes, so that you practice this transition. So Blaž is going to feed me in the first variation. He's going to feed everything from the hand, just like a ball machine would, or a coach would feed you 2 balls and you just practice the sequence and try to feel the difference between volleys. And in variation 2, he's going to hit the first ball back to me and I will volley it away. So my first volley will go to him. He's going to play the ball back at me, and that's the most realistic situation when you're receiving a live ball and practicing your volleys. So let me show you now from the backhand side first how that looks like. Yeah, that's perfect. So after the first volley, I'm playing the first volley deep. I want the ball to float. This one was not perfectly executed, so let me try again. If I can give it more height, this one is much better. And I stayed a little bit to see how the ball goes, so now I'm going to move through better. So I'm going to volley, going to come close to the net. So let's do the variation with the live ball. Blaž is hitting me the ball. I'm trying to play it very deep. I close in on the net and I try to angle the ball away, depending on the ball that I receive. Yeah, even this one, so you see sometimes it's quite tricky to play a high ball deep, but you need to practice that. This one is a bit easier. It was a bit short. And try to notice how I smoothly transition from the first volley. See, this one was such a good first volley that I basically hit the baseline, and then Blaž is in big trouble, or your opponent. This one's a bit high. Let's try one more. Floats the ball, still inside the court. I can play a drop shot if I want. So I'm now in control. So let's try one more. So I'm not trying to hit very fast, just very deep. Close in on the net, angle the ball away, and that's how you start to feel. When you do these sequences in a row, you start to feel how this works and what this gives you, and also try to notice how you push your opponent back with a deep volley, and then it's very hard for them to hit a good passing shot. So in summary, what are the keys to hitting very good and effective deep volleys? The first ones are tactical, that you know what is your objective. Your objective is not to hit the fastest deep volley in your county. The objective is that you play the volley deep, which is not so fast. The ball has to go a little bit upwards with some backspin, because backspin allows the ball to fly and float quite deep. And after that, you want to close in on the net. See if you can glide through the volley when you're hitting it, that you don't block in the same way as you do when you hit punch volleys. And technically, you have to apply some backspin and give the ball some height to achieve that. So I showed you the drills. Now this video is just information. Information does not develop skills, only drills develop skills. And so if you don't practice the drills, you will just know a bit more how to play the ball deep, but you're not going to be able to execute it. So do put in some time with your partner or with the ball machine and follow the progression of drills in order to develop the right skills to play the ball deep. And finally, if you struggle still with the fundamental volley technique, then I recommend you watch my forehand volley technique video here, and backhand volley technique down here, so that you're on the right track with your volleys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.